On today's episode of the Coaches Clinic podcast, brought to you by MaxEffortMuscle.com, that now has the NSF certification on amino recovery. Holler at our boy Treadway. Man, the 4-topic thing is cool, Mike.
It really is. I think what I really enjoy is the ability to reflect and to think internally. And D's got this magic right now. I think he's like reading my brain. There's two shows in a row. He's brought up too sensitive of topics for me. But no, it's been really good.
Treadway.
Yeah, I think this episode is really good for like the internal reflection, like Deegan said, and it made me think about my answers like more so than usual.
I could tell.
It was really good.
D.
No, the thing I really liked about this episode is I'm getting some good perspective on the coaching mindset of team sports versus what you and I do, which is a little bit different. So I think, for any coach out there, whether you coach individuals in the gym or you're a high-level college, high school coach that coaches big teams, whatever, you're going to be able to take a lot away from it.
I would agree with that, and I love the squeeze. Yeah. I learned a lot. I'm gonna have my my own squeeze situation that I'm going to put together with a strategy because of what Deegan answered one of the questions. So this is an amazing show for all coaches. Let's go to the show. We are live, Coaches Clinic podcast. I'm your boy Corey G, Coach Mike Deegan, Coach Tyler Treadway, Coach Dustin Myers. This is a hell of a coaching staff we got here.
We're back, baby.
We are back. Treadway, what's up?
Yo, I'm sitting here looking at this Denison University camo hat.
He brought you one, bro.
I brought them. They're all out there.
Crazy. The respect.
It's sick, right?
I'm excited for baseball season. We had Coach Matt Engel on.
Yep.
Excited to see how some of these coaches start to perform. The football coaches that we've interviewed haven't had their seasons yet. So it's kind of cool to see it start rolling and see how they act during the season. I'm excited for your season to start, Deegan.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have to roll deep like Coach's Clinic. Go watch a game, dude.
Yeah.
It'd be
Pressure.
cool. Get
Pressure.
that VIP treatment,
That's it.
Sit in the front row.
I give you free tickets.
Hey, so shout out Coach Storms. So, head strength coach over Florida State football, showed some love, sent me and Treadway some stuff. Even put Treadway's deadlift on his Instagram yesterday. I was like, all right. So it was pretty cool. So it's good. Cool. It's good. Some of the coaches are just showing love in general from the content and with Max NSF. So it's exciting times. But speaking of baseball season, I wore my White Sox hat today.
Got to know why.
And I want to share a story because I think, hold on, I got to get my facts straight. All right. So I know you love this, Coach. All right, so I was in Chicago randomly, okay?
Only someone that travels a lot would say they were in Chicago randomly.
I was in Chicago randomly, July 23rd, 2009.
Got it.
Okay? And so I go to this game, and I'm like raising money for Muscle Farm back in the day, and I'm with this big-time guy that's in Chicago, and we go to the game, and he's an older dude. He actually put in money in the White Sox in the 80s, so he's a small minority owner, right? Real low-key dude. He's like, I usually leave by the 7th inning, whatever. So it's 7th inning. The mitts pop in, and I'm realizing, like, dude's got a no-hitter going. So I'm like, yo, sir, you mind if we stay? Well, it's not a no-hitter. It's a perfect game. There's been, in 150 years of Major League Baseball, 23 official perfect games. And I saw number 18 live. 4 rows up. Mark Burley.
I was going to say Burley. I was going to say the lefty, right? Yeah.
So in the 9th inning is something I'll never forget. Dwayne Wise made one of the most amazing plays I've ever seen, especially in person. Guy hits a rocket to center field. Dwayne Wise climbs the wall, catches the ball, but as he's falling, it falls out of his glove. He snags it with his bare hand before he hits the ground, and the place goes absolutely nuts. And so he saves the perfect game. And Burley's juiced, boy. I mean, juiced. And you can hear the mitt popping on the last out, like the adrenaline's at the highest level. So what I don't realize at the time is that I'm witnessing, literally, I didn't know like the history of the perfect game. That in the entire, like it's such an unbelievable, and it was just so random that I bought this hat that day, so I would never forget it. So anyway, I knew you probably didn't know that story, so I would wear it today. And just like the understanding of what I was witnessing, I didn't realize how great it was that second. But then once I went home and looked it up, I was like, holy shit, G, like you just saw something that people never see.
But you felt it though, even though you didn't know it. You felt the
I knew I wasn't supposed to leave.
Right.
Let me put it to you that way.
Yeah.
I knew that there was greatness happening, but when I witnessed that, and you can look it up on YouTube, that play with Dwayne Wise was unbelievable. So I want to give you all chills for a second.
I'm going to say it's almost better in a way that you didn't really understand the full
I agree.
ramifications of it, because then you
Sure.
were really just be able to enjoy what you felt in the moment, as opposed to understanding the whole historical significance and like you might have been like tweeting about it or something if you'd have known. You know what I mean?
It was unbelievable. Well, I figure in 2009 I just signed up for Twitter like maybe 6 months before that. But it was like I can just not. The biggest thing I remember from was his focus.
Yeah.
He was so like present and focused, and that ball looked like it was going 120, bro.
You know what's great? The name escapes me, but I know a guy who knows a guy who played shortstop. He was kind of a journeyman in the big leagues, just a little bit here and there, but he played shortstop and was playing shortstop on Randy Johnson's perfect game.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Anyways, just what's off of that is just to kind of add to it. Big league players, they're usually pretty low heart rate. They've seen a lot of things. Guy said he was scared to death. That's
that you're gonna mess it
You
up.
don't want to mess. I mean, an error ends the perfect game,
Yes.
right? Or not making a play that should be made. So he said he was yelling at himself. I think it's kind of cool. To get himself going. He was going, come on,
talking shit to himself.
Come on,
Yeah.
let's go, because he felt the moment too. So I think I always think it's pretty amazing when guys at that level also feel the moment.
For sure.
So to kind of add to the electricity of that moment, they're feeling it, you're feeling it, Burley's feeling it. And
218,000 games played,
right.
23 total.
Boom.
Hey, a little history for you there, Coach. Huh? I figured I'm glad that Treadway let it off with baseball. That was like an alley-oop to me. I didn't even know. All right, so last podcast, it was great because we had 4 different topics. I kind of threw it out. I think we should kind of keep rolling with that just because there was a good groove, and we were all each, I think, learning so well from each other. So I think, Treadway, you're the man of few words today. We're going to start off with you. What was your topic you had in mind?
Yeah, so this has been, kind of in the back of my head with some things that are going on personally, but when you're picking your coaching staff or your team at work or like your group that you're training with or anything that it is, how do you go about picking the people that you want? And to kind of peel that back, what happens if you pick somebody and they're not the right fit? How do you handle that? Like maybe you pick somebody because you think they have this aspect or this trait, and then once you get them in the system, they're not performing the way that you would like them to. How do you go about that? Like, let's say you hire an assistant coach and you're like, I really want him to do this, and then he's just not really doing it. Like, how do you kind of coax him into getting him to do what you want to do?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, so I guess my perspective is going to be a little bit different than Deegan's. Mine's probably going to be more similar to yours, because when I am coaching athletes, when we talk about a staff, I'm kind of hired or consulted, from an actual coaching staff. So I don't get to pick my assistant coaches, but I guess the closest thing would be when I am taking, a group of athletes. Let's say I got 16 or 20 athletes, and I got to subdivide them into like training groups, groups of 4, groups of 5 within that. I have to kind of designate one of them as the leader within that group. So I would almost look at them as my pseudo assistant coaches. So the first thing I got to look for is, number one, I need someone that has some ability. I can't have someone be a leader within a strength group that doesn't have any ability, no matter how good of a kid they are. But probably even more important than their ability is I have to know that they're bought into the system and understand and are committed to the way I'm doing things. They can't just be a strong kid, because if they're just a strong kid that wants to do things their own way or not going to fall in line with me, the quote unquote head coach, then how are they going to lead those other ones? So that's kind of the biggest thing, is you got to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page. We have someone with some talent and ability, and I got to make sure too that they're going to be able to, also, kind of motivate and not be afraid to, crack the whip a little bit on the other guys that are around them. And that can be really hard when you're dealing with, college athletes, because they're peers, So, if the 4 of us are college athletes and we're friends, maybe we live together, maybe we go out on our girlfriends are in the same sorority or whatever it is, but I got to be able to look at you and tell you to pick up the slack. That's hard for people to do with their peers. It's even hard as adults to do, right?
True.
It's
hard at work too.
Yeah, it's hard at work. It's not easy. So I think it's even harder for, college athletes or high school athletes. But, something I've definitely seen from, the athletes at the very elite end of the spectrum, Kyle Snyder, Olympic champ, Logan Stieber, world champ, 4-time NCAA, those type of guys, even if they're not the most vocal, rah guys in your face, they're not afraid to turn to the next guy and say, like,
Get your shit together.
Get your shit together. You have to. You're not held up to the standard. So I know that was kind of a lot to unpack there.
No, that's
but,
good, D.
I think you got to make sure they're bought into the system. They have some ability, and they're not afraid to lead.
Yeah, go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, I think from a staff hiring perspective, I think a lot of people get in trouble because they try to hire for someone who they think has this great skill set. Like, I'll speak in baseball terms. Like, they'll think this pitching coach has some unbelievable knowledge that they think is going to transcend their program, and they go too quick. And to me, like, that's important, obviously, the competency, but the fit in the feel, I think, is more important. Do they align with the culture? Do they align with the values of the organization? And I think that's where people make their most mistakes. I really think you can teach for competency. Like, you can upskill there. Like, you can send people off to clinics to learn, all that kind of stuff. But if they don't have if they're not aligned culturally, I think it's really, really tough to overcome that piece. Now, as far as when there's a mistake hiring, I think the first thing is, as the head coach, for me, I think you guys could probably sense this, but I look internally. Yep. I say, okay, what am I doing wrong here? Have I educated this person at the highest level? Have I taught them? Have we had these conversations? So I'm usually going to look internally first and really hard. And then, right, at some point, though, right, you reflect and go, this person's just not getting it. And then that's when it's time you have to make some tough decisions and part ways. But I very rarely blame coaches, and I very rarely blame players. I'll usually start with me, and then at some point, right, then you can say it's others. But I think a lot of coaches get in trouble. One, they hire too quick. They hire too quick without doing the research. Then two, they blame others. You're blaming others, and I think that's just a victim mentality that doesn't play.
Yeah, I'll talk about, like, from a work standpoint. I think we wear people out, like, and I can usually see it relatively fast. Some people can hide it for a while, some people can't. You might think somebody's capable of one thing and they're not, or they're not capable of, like, sustaining it. What we do is not for everybody. That's an absolute fact, right? It's the way that it makes life really interesting, but it's chaotic. And I think that you might think one person can adapt or do, but it's also hiring the person 100%. Mm-hmm. So, like, even if I look at, like, Cole wasn't hired in as a graphics guy. Cole became the graphic gangster. You know what I mean? Like, it's like one of these things, like, we're hiring, really, like, young men to men that, like, have fit the mold, then could find a spot because they're willing to do whatever it takes. Treadway didn't go to school to run NSF, like, sports team stuff, right? I don't think so.
No.
But Treadway was the best quality person in my mind for that. And then until he came and sat in here and actually understood what really happens here, how you have to adapt, how you got to make stuff up, how, like, it's a clean slate, like, almost like startup type of vibe, but also under, like, a certain circumstance of, like, expectation. So a lot of people, that just, like, they crumble. You know what I mean? And then on top of it, I'm going to keep asking them to do more because that's what it is. That's efficient. How are we going to grow? We're going to grow because these guys can grow, because I can grow. And so that right there, like, you really can't hide that for very long. So I think that's even an easy conversation to some degree. Like, I would say in the past, it would go on for too long. I would, like, let people, like, ride, and I knew they're drowning. Mm-hmm. And then, look, I just come to them and say, look, it's just not for you. This is not you. Your personality really ain't this way. I hired a really good kid a while ago. It was in the wrong position. Mm-hmm. And I just told him, like, look, dude, this ain't for you. Like, he's really, like, more my personality. He's not really an operations guy, but I trusted him. So I said, like, you just really aren't made for this job. So there's no ill will. I appreciate you helping me out, but I got to have somebody that thinks like Tyler, Sea Lover. Like, I need that guy who's got every little detail that, wants a speck off the wall to be clean. Like, I need that guy because I'm not that way. So I think, like, that communication is really tough. I think I'm getting better as I get older. But yeah, man, it's tricky. And I just know, like, our pace is tough, man. It's just what it is.
But correct me if I'm wrong, though. Like, so I mean, a lot of people in this room working here, a lot of people, those relationships started at the 4 a.m.
All
club
of them in
or
the gym.
In the gym.
Yeah.
And there was –
in Kim's garage.
Yeah. Like, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, but very rarely do people come off the street and hand you a resume and say, hey, I want to work here.
Never. There's not one person here
it's
that way.
It's more. Hey, you see somebody sustained coming and working out every day. You see that they're around this operation.
Yeah, I trust Tyler Treadway.
Yeah,
because he's shown me loyalty and time involved and commitment all these years, all the way from when he was like a fan, quote unquote, like and didn't even know me.
Fanboy.
To where I don't call him a fanboy, but he was a fan of the brand.
Yeah.
And then intermixed and spent the time to like earn that respect. So then if I've got a guy I want on my team that if I'm going to pay somebody, I want to pay somebody I like. And then I think can then mature because now he's got not a corporate structure, right? Because that's the thing, like as me being the quote unquote head coach here, like I want people to have their own lane so they can be great, within what we're trying to expect. So that's kind of my vibe on it. You got anything to add, Treadway?
No, that was wonderful. I, as I'm like thinking through the situation that I'm going through, I think that helps me kind of lead the direction that I want to go and kind of maneuver the pieces that I have.
Yeah. It's like, hey, this is where we start, but this ain't where we end.
Yeah, for
you know
sure.
what I mean? I need that evolution because we're all evolving.
People, man.
That's it, bro.
You get the right people, they can learn how to be the graphic gangster, or they'll find their lane. I shouldn't say that, but they'll find it. But if you get the wrong people, it's going to be a nightmare.
Well, and there's also people that might think that they're right for it, but they ain't. And they're going to walk out of here being super butthurt, and that happens too. But that's not really my problem. Next topic. Mike, you want to go?
Yeah, I guess for me it's not advice really. I just wanted to I wanted to put you as under the microscope a little bit and ask. And maybe I'll start with you, Tread. What can you be more intentional about, coaching wise, or leading, or growing your business, or anything? Is there an area where you wish you were more intentional or intentionally focused? And if you're not ready to answer that, and someone wants to jump in as you move forward to make your stuff better.
That's a tough question.
It is. It's good, Mike.
that was a really good question.
It made me move around in my seat a little bit over here.
So that's
making us look inward here.
Yeah.
That's
good though.
My coaching tip though, right? I think one of the things as a coach, you take the coaching hat and you put it on others,
Yeah,
right? Like
of course.
A lot of times you don't have to have all the answers. You put that on somebody else. So yeah. So what can you be more intentional about?
Yeah, so when I think about my coaching style and the things that I think that I'm good at, I think I need to be more intentional about actually being good at those things. So, like, I consider myself a player's coach, and when I think about, like, D'Angelo's episode and all the things that he was talking about that he does as a player's coach, I'm like, well, I don't do half of that. But the kids like me, we have good relationships, and all of these good things are coming about of that, and I think back and I'm like internally, like, am I doing everything that I can, and are there other things that I can be intentional about? Like, I should be going the extra mile. I should be, helping them reach out to colleges. Like, it's more about just being their it's less about being their friend and more about developing them as humans. So, like, we started a newsletter where I send out some leadership stuff, and there's been articles from all of you guys or videos, or your newsletter's been plugged in there as well. But trying to develop people to the next level, and being actually intentional about being a player's coach.
So if I'm listening to you, I'm hearing you say that you have this gift of being someone who can relate to players. Now you want to take this gift and actually maybe become more of a mentor, like saying, like listening into the kids and saying, okay, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go with this thing? And then how can I take my energy and my resources and my gift and help you fulfill that vision a little bit more? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people see a player's coach and it gets a bad reputation because they're like, oh, you're just a friend of the players. But it's more than that. It's more about being like, I don't want to say it's like a second dad, but it's almost like that figure that they have. It's like an older brother, right? I'm the person that's supposed to be put in their life to help them get to their next destination and help bring the most out of them, because I can see where I was when I was their age and see the person that I wish I had, not that I didn't have a great support group, but see the person that I wish I had that kind of put their arm on my shoulder and said, okay, here's where you want to be in life. I'm going to help you get there. I'm going to use my resources, my connections, my network, and just try and get you there and try and pour more into that and help them grow, help them learn, and feed them the knowledge they need.
A couple things. Great answer, Mike. Your arms look huge. I mean, I just want to throw that out there. Dustin,
that was good. That was good coaching right there.
Yeah.
Positive
being more
feedback.
intentional about that. Go ahead, D. You take it.
Okay, so what do I need to be more intentional about with coaching? I think, I think about how I coach, my athletes, my high school, and even my elite athletes. I definitely have a style that I use with my guys that are new, to kind of help try to bring them up. I don't really try to lower the bar for them. I try to bring them up. When I think about my guys that are in the middle that I know have ability but need to work harder, I lead by example. I definitely have a certain style with them, but I think maybe I need to be more intentional with my guys that are more of a finished product, like a Colin Moore, Matt Brown, guys like this, where I need to be more intentional about not just training with them and setting the plan and leading by example, but I need to make sure, like, is Colin doing his prehab on a Thursday when he's not here? These little things.
check-in like that.
Correct. These little things that I almost kind of take for granted that I think, well, this guy's a pro, so he'll take care of it. And we talked about it 6 months ago, so I know he's doing it. I need to maybe, and it's a fine line because when you're dealing with grown men, you can't be right on top of them all the time.
Can you tell me what that would look like? Just like, what would that look like? Colin comes in.
So something like, let's say for Colin, with Colin, for example, like nutrition's very crucial for him, as it is with all athletes. But with him, he competes internationally at 97 kilos, so that's 213. Most of those guys, Kyle Snyder, the reigning medalist in that weight, cuts from about 225 to 230. Colin's undersized at that weight. He was a college 197, so he walks around maybe 215 to 217, which is a good weight for him. He looks good, he looks strong, but if he was lean at 220, it would be better. And I think, for that to happen, he has to be really dialed in to his nutrition. Now, we might talk about nutrition every once in a while, but it might just be like, hey, are you eating good? I'm not really going in depth with him. I know we've talked about stuff a while, but maybe I need to be more intentional about sending him a text once a week and say, hey, make sure that you're not, snacking late. Make sure that you're getting, when he leaves every day, I need to say, hey, make sure you go home and eat, 6 eggs, whole avocado, and some quinoa. I need to kind of just keep chirping in his ear without being overbearing.
How important to get nutrition? How important for someone like him is the recovery piece?
It's huge.
And just I think that recovery for novices like me is kind of a new thing. Like it's newer edge. So just what would recovery? Can you talk a little bit about that for a guy like Colin or elite athlete? What they do to recover?
Well, the first thing, obviously as soon as we finish the workout, he has his max effort amino recovery. Little plug there.
Shout out.
He does the amino recovery. He does the greens in the fruits, and he does that immediately after. And he does another scoop of creatine, so he does that immediately after.
And you can almost guarantee that happens. Like that. Like
he does it before he leaves.
So for a guy like him, that's a non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable.
I'm the only one not wearing Max, by the way. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah. So when we're off air, I'll tell you more about our company.
Please.
But so that's something I know he does because I see him do it.
Yeah.
He does it on the bench there before he leaves every day. But does he go straight to Whole Foods and have breakfast? Does he have it when he gets home? Does he wait? Does he forget until after? I don't know. So I need to be in his ear a little bit. But so that's the first thing. I make sure he has his immediate recovery tools right then. But you got to think, you talked about recovery is a little bit new for you. You have to coach later in the day and you have other stuff you have to do. He finishes up with me at 9 or 9:30. He has practice at 2:30 or 3. And he might have to wrestle matches against Desi, the Canadian Olympian, who's the heavyweight. You know what I mean? So his recovery is very crucial because if he recovers, this much versus that much, that's really going to affect his performance in practice that day. So, the first thing is getting those aminos, the electrolytes, getting rehydrated, making sure he gets a good meal in him and time enough for it to digest so that he doesn't go into practice feeling sluggish. That's really the big thing.
Yeah, one note of recovery. It's like I said, it's new for me, but it's
Something's working, coach.
Yeah. I meant like with our players, but like when you look at high level pitchers, and I won't get into the weeds too much, but as soon as they're done, I mean, it becomes like a race. Usually starters they're on a 5-day plan, but it becomes a race. Like so, the great ones they get done. Like recovery starts immediately. Whatever that may be. It's in the weight room. Like they're going. It's not the days of like back in the day. It was like you have a few beers and go sit around, and just kind of wait the 5 days. Now recovery is very, very active, and so I appreciate you shining a little light.
I'm not going to talk about it, but me and DeLucia was texting back and forth about that exact thing, about certain things that they're doing that he's kind of picked up from listening to me and whatnot. Like we've been kind of chirping back and forth on that. So I think that's like he was like that's real. And a starter goes 6 innings. What they do immediately after is everything.
It's everything because 2 or 3 days later they need to throw a bullpen all out, and if they're sore for that bullpen, then they don't get it. They don't get as much out of it. Same thing with Colin. If he goes and wrestles and he doesn't quite feel right at 2:30, he can go in there and roll around with the guy, but it's not the same as if he's recovered and ready to go.
Well, I think to your point about it starting immediately, as for coaches, you might have to find ways to wrap the recovery, and not just talking about the nutrition, but recovery modalities immediately into the post-practice. And that's something I've been doing with Matt Brown once a week because I knew he needed to do, sauna recovery once a week. And I was kind of just left him to do it on his own because he said, well, yeah, they got a sauna at Lifetime Fitness where he goes there once a week on the weekend or whatever. But the first couple weeks he was never getting it done. So I said, all right, well, now on Thursdays when you come out and train, you're not sparring that night. You have a light practice at night. So we're going to sauna immediately after the workout. So even though I would rather not sauna at noon on a Thursday, I need to do it because I need to make sure that he gets it done.
My last thing about this is this not new? Is it newer for you? Like 10 years ago, were people talking recovery like this? Or
I don't think I thought about it as much back then.
No.
I think when you're younger, you don't think about it as much
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
But you should.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's
Yeah, so maybe there were coaches that were, but I don't think we were as focused on it. I think we were focused on our nutrition.
Yeah.
But more from like physique, body fat.
Well, you got to
standpoint.
remember, we started as bodybuilders, so
Yeah.
we're always going to be clued in more to that stuff than the average public, right? That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
That I will say this: the dumbest bodybuilder on the planet is still so much smarter than the average person on nutrition. It's unbelievable, right? Because they understand insulin, body fat, training, recovery. It's just like the base level knowledge.
So that's
is,
part of your world. Like it's not.
Yeah. And that's why you also think like all the trial and error with supplements is a lot of it's based around recovery and performance. So that's like something that's always on especially guys that don't take drugs like us. That's like, part of kind of how we operate. So the way I was thinking about being more intentional, this is something I've been trying to be more intentional on anyway, but I even want to go another level on it because if I look at kind of my life, what it's like the guys in the morning, which I feel like a big brother to a lot of those guys, right? The guys in the office, the guys I'm podcasting with, people that are around, which our circle is small, but it's grown a decent amount with some like killers out here, right? You're obviously one of the ones that have come into the circle, which has been great, Mike. And I try to do things on purpose to let people know I'm thinking about them more than they think I am. And I try to do things to help speak confidence, like, and push confidence in them, because at the end of the day, that's why I wrote the book, How to Build Confidence and Win a Life. That's the key to everything. So if somebody doesn't know I think that about them, I want to hit them at it. It's like, actually, Danny's really good at gift giving. He does really good thought-provoking gifts. So you can tell he spent time on it. He's done this like 6 or 8 times. He'll bring me something. It doesn't even matter that if it costs that much, but it's like he's studied the art of that, right? So I'm kind of like in a different way. It's like I'm not saying like, oh, I'm giving things, but what I'm saying is that just like with starting the podcast, I'm like, Mike, we got reps here. We need to figure out a way to get reps. I think you're great at it by reading, right? Dustin's the same way. You guys have never been on the mic together. We hadn't even been on the mic together, but you both needed to be in these chairs, in my opinion, just as your friend, more because you had greatness there, right? Treadway's like the wild card. I never heard him talk this much other than in the gym. So the things that he was, behind that's in that head, I didn't even know was as great as it is, right? So then we got this nucleus that now is on fire, in my opinion. But my thing was, I'm trying to put, whether it's to get a construction guy in my group to invest in the stock that never thought about it before, gets you guys on the microphone. Me and Treadway are talking about some new stuff right now. Like, it's, to me, I've seen the top of certain parts, right? So I've been in these dream scenarios I never thought I could get to. So to me, everything's possible. Nothing seems off the table to me because I lived it. When I'm sitting there on Arnold Schwarzenegger's back patio smoking a cigar as his business partner, I don't know that there's anything that can top that for me. It's just what it is. So when I know I could reach that, to me, it's my job as quote unquote kind of a head coaching role or a guy these guys look up to try to give them little nuggets and speak that into them to let them know, like, I see somebody do something in the gym, like, bro, you can be the best at 181, but you got to show up tomorrow. And I'm going to be here. So it's like, and I'm going to support you if you got that. You know what I mean? Like, we can, could we have so-and-so take the product? Yeah. I had this guy take it.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Tiger Woods is fucking texting me on a regular basis. You think I'm scared of anybody? No. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, so it's, you can drop that. I dropped that name. Sorry. y'all can pick that up. Y'all can pick that up. But it's like, so I think like what I'm trying to do a better job of is, I think about these things, but then acting on them.
Yeah.
So whether it's from the gym, whether it's in the business, and I know, early kind of times when Dustin was starting to do online stuff, I would do that a lot to him because I already knew. He's an amazing writer, bro. He has an English degree. Me, I'm like half illiterate. I was like, it's just the fucking truth. I got like a 2.0. So I'm like, I'm like, dude, these ebooks will kill it, bro. Like, you don't have to have anybody edit them. You're already a genius in the gym. When we put it on paper, people around the world are going to want to buy it. You know what I mean? So I would just chirp at them until you would listen to me.
I honestly wrote my first ebook so you would leave me alone. And the ebooks have changed they've changed my business, changed my career. But like you were on me, you would text me, say, D, did you start that ebook yet? And then and I kept saying, yeah, I'm going to start. And then finally I was like, I'm going to start this so he'll leave me alone. Now there's an old saying, it's something like, really great people will make you feel that you can become great too. It's something along those lines.
Well, and I think that because I've experienced it, I want that for everybody that's in my circle that has it, right? Because if everyone could experience what I felt at times, then they would work unbelievably hard constantly on what they want to do for their life and passion. And I think that's part of one of my gifts, man, to be honest, that I experienced that early.
Two things jump out to me. There's a UMass hockey coach. I'll send you guys the podcast, but they have a phrase. I think I did send it to you.
Yeah, it was super powerful.
Yeah, but they have their core values, but it ends up being like, I see you. And so he wants everyone in his program to feel seen. And I think that's what you're describing. Like, I see you. Like, I see you in here working. Like, you're not just in the weight room today lifting over there in the corner. Like, I see you. I want to address you. I want to actually give you a nugget that can hopefully take you from a construction worker also to invest in some things.
Yep.
And that's the first thing. And then one of our previous guests, I love the line of, I'll borrow my belief in you. And I think that's what, you were doing for D, and I know you've done it for me and some others, but like, I believe in you. Like, and maybe you don't believe in yourself just yet, but I see it. So
I don't know that everybody believes that they're great. Like, and that's why they just need somebody to tell them sometimes. Yeah. And people had to do that for me too. And be like, yo, or like give me the nod, like give me a shot at it. You're right, just to do it. So to me, it's like, I think I'm doing things I wish people did for me potentially to like help me along the way, especially because I know what that can do for people if it's authentic and real. I'm not going to give it if it ain't. I ain't giving those like comments if they ain't real. But I know that the real ones will be like, oh, okay. Like, GC and something like, because I've seen a lot, so that right there, I think, and I am doing it. I do it sometimes naturally, but I'm trying to be more intentional about doing it more often. I sent something to Peters the other day, and his answer back was, I think it was like 8 p.m. Something came across my mind, and I sent him something. I can't even remember exactly what the situation was. He wrote back, he's like, bro, this just text is elite. That's what he wrote. He wrote just the thought process of like, it was, unprompted. It was something like kind of powerful and like, or like if you have a good, quote that really is like life-changing, like I might send it to like 20, 30 people because you don't know who has a bad day today. So I think that's like something I'm trying to understand, like my position, whether people look at me like that or don't look at me like that. I'm trying to show them like I felt this, and this is like a help along the way. You know what I mean? So
awesome.
I feel like you can't go wrong if you're trying to like do that.
Yeah.
Who else didn't answer that? Everybody answer it?
Yep.
All right. Who's next? Is it me? All right. So my topic was when you have everybody's talking culture and team and all this, right? And you've got, whether it's a good player, bad player, it really doesn't matter. But somebody is you got them signed for 4 years. They're in our group. They're in your group D. But they just ain't fully bought in. And they act like they're bought in, and they float away a little bit. And most of the time, they just weed themselves out in my group because they either ain't going to show up or whatever. But that's not like that in every, like that's only my situation, my unique or maybe D's. So like, is it a hard? You either are on the fucking ship or you're off the ship. Or is there a communication on if the person's great, will you bend it a little bit? Will you, like, I'm trying to, because I'm on the side of like, yo, you're either in it or you're out. Because one voice, we talked about this, right? One voice is really important, especially if it's a leader. So it's like, I'm trying to like, I have some conversations with guys sometimes, and I'm just like, look, man, the competition is where it's at. You're hurt. You got some things going on. You got to do your own thing. I get it. But when that shit's cleaned up, if you ain't in it, you ain't in it. Once again, I'll tell motherfuckers, I didn't spend 7 figures to be the same. We did this to be different and to be great. So it's like, I'm speaking that into them like, too, like, you better believe me because that's what we're pushing for. Arnold said something the other day. I was listening to this podcast with him and Logan Paul. He said, you either have it in you to desire to continue to grow or you don't. Oh, I got it in me. And so either you're about that and you want to get in the system and go to the top with us, or you're off the ship. So I'm trying to figure out, like, but in your environment, maybe can you be like, how do you like address that? Because there's people that you can tell they ain't all the way bought, or maybe they aren't. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think, my situation's a little bit different because I got kind of different areas where I'm coaching in. So if you look at like my youth and high school groups, I mean, at the end of the day, their parents are paying for a service.
Yeah.
So if I have a kid that misses some here and there, like, yeah, I can get in his ear, but my job is to try to help him. So unless he's a total disruption to the process,
Yeah.
I have to give them some slack. But I just kind of already know in my head, like, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to pour 100% into this kid because he's not committed all the way. So that's kind of my way. Like, there's not a hard cut of like, hey, if you're not 100% in, you're out. Mm-hmm. And maybe in the future, I'll be in a position where it'll be more like that, But right now, that's just kind of the reality of it. Yeah. Do I wish I could be like that? But I really can't.
That's a good, honest opinion.
Yeah.
Which is true.
But when I think about how, like, for example, they operate at Ohio State, like how Tom and his coaching staff operate. There's many D1 colleges where kids can go and kind of survive on talent, but not be 100% committed to the process and committed to the program and the culture. But at a place like Ohio State Wrestling, it's a very elite culture. The coaching staff is elite, and they want elite men in there. So I've seen kids that I've worked with, that had elite talent, but they couldn't survive there because they couldn't do the little things. They would miss study table. They would be late to practice sometimes. Maybe they fail a drug test. All these little things. And I'm not going to lie, they probably gave maybe a little bit more leeway to the guys that were very talented, but they only give them so much.
Yeah.
They're not
There's a line.
There's a line.
Yeah.
And once you've kind of crossed that line in Coach Ryan's mind, you're gone. It doesn't matter how good you could be. I've seen guys.
It's a hard cut.
It's a hard cut. And there's been athletes that privately, there's been conversation among the coaches like, hey, if this kid could get together, he could be one of the best ever. So imagine saying like, hey, this guy could be one of the best ever to wrestle for the Buckeyes, but say, you know what, you can't be a part of our program. But I think that in order, at least in that arena, to be very elite, they have to have some type of hard cut like that.
Yeah.
Now, can I have that with my high school training groups? No, but at least not.
But like, for instance, like our guys, they're paying the membership, but they ain't paying me.
Right.
So it's like if they
it's more of a privilege.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I can be like, yo, you're out. It's just like this ain't a fucking democracy. I don't know. You know what I mean? What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I'll give you the soft answer first. One,
great.
I think being a parent has shook me up, right?
Yeah.
Like, I see my kids and every kid that we coach now, and sometimes like
being a parent changes you.
Yeah, the hard cut. I'm always like with 18 to 22. That's not who I am right now, but. We call it the squeeze. So the same thing we were, I was saying how you see people.
Yeah.
The same thing holds true. And so you have that, if the kids who were in the squeeze, like they're not going to hide, like meaning, so I'm going to squeeze them, and then you'll either, if you squeeze.
Did you see those pipes when you
Yeah, no. Hey.
These guys are on me. But if you squeeze, they'll either rise up and become a star, or they'll squeeze and get out.
So the tube's gonna squeeze up or squeeze down.
Yeah. So you just keep seeing them, right? And hey, you missed study tape. Like you're not gonna. I think average coaches or whatever, they'll let some things slide just because it's inconvenient to confront.
Yeah.
But when you're in the squeeze, we see everything, and that's and I think that's what you do, because you're either gonna try to we have a great example right now of a kid who's was in the squeeze who's becoming a star, and by star I just mean a person. Like he's becoming just he's becoming the special forces, right? Not just part of the Army. And we have a couple others that we'll see, that they'll either get on or get off, right? And then there does become the moment as a coach where you have to do the hard cut. But I want to see it through first, right? And see if there is greatness in there. And I think one more thing off of this, I'm also not, you mentioned about a business partner who wasn't working out or whatever. Yeah. That's how I feel as well. Like, just because it's not working for us, you can go somewhere else and maybe flourish as a baseball player or get out of baseball in general. We're spending a lot of time doing this, so go pour that time and energy into something you love and watch it grow. So I always think too, as a coach, sometimes it's my role to be the bad guy. I always say, I've had this conversation before with kids like that just weren't quite getting it. I'll say, hey, do you want me to cut you? Do you want me to do it?
Because you got to talk to your parents.
You guys, you and your parents
can say,
you can say how bad of a person I am and what a jerk I am. You can do all that. I'll take that for you. I don't want you and your dad being at odds. Let me do it, and then I'll own it. And I've had that, and I've had kids. They won't say yes, but they'll They won't give you a no, you know. So
yeah, if you ain't get a hard no on that, you know the answer.
Because what I'm thinking there,
Yeah.
honestly, my honest truth there is that there is greatness in there somewhere. It's probably just not in this arena.
Yeah.
And you're wasting your time with us. You're
Yeah.
wasting your time and obviously our time. So that'd be my
No,
take.
that's really good. I like that answer. And the giving them the out, that's because you can look in their eyes and see.
Yeah, you don't want to do this anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't, and it's so hard to call. You know, with wrestling parents too, right? Like it's really hard to say, Dad, I don't want to wrestle anymore. Or I don't want to play. I don't like. I put all this time and we went to all these meets. You've paid for coaching and now you don't. I can't call and say I don't want to do this. Like
Yeah.
So, anyways, let me be the bad guy. You know, and that's a role
I
I
think
can
that's
play.
also good coaching. That's real good. Stribling?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different at the high school level because you don't often get to handpick the kids that you get, or you get the kids that are in the school system. So it's like you're so limited on what you get. But the thing that I try to do is if a kid falls out of favor because they don't believe in the system, I try as an assistant to give them the tools that they need to work their way back in, and then it's kind of up to them if they want to use that or not.
Yeah.
So we had an instance where we had a kid who was very talented and by all means should have been playing every single game, but he didn't buy into the team. He didn't buy into the system. Club is really big in soccer, so he would always talk about, well, my club team does this. And I'm like, well, that's awesome, but I don't care.
Yeah, we ain't your club team, homie.
Yeah, this is how you operate when you're here. And to be honest with you, if you don't want to operate in that manner, then you can still be on the team. You can be part of this, but you're just not going to play. And he took it really hard. And to be honest with you, he acted the opposite of the way you want him to. Like he just shut down and was like, well, it's this guy's fault. It's this guy's fault. And then, throughout the season, I'm trying to put these nuggets into him. Like, hey, man, like this is why this is happening. This is why this is happening. Like, these are the situations you're being put in, and this is your reaction to that, and that's why you're getting this outcome. So if this happens to you and you respond negatively, you're going to have a negative reaction. And these are what you can do to kind of flip that and positive and find yourself back on the field. And then by the end of the season, he was starting to kind of get it and understand. And then he ended up starting for us at the end of the year because he understood that he was going to stop being the victim and start, taking kind of control of his own habits, his own life. And, worked out well for us. So just kind of, giving them the tools they need to succeed. So, like when Deegan has a guy that he's talking about that, he squeezes him and he kind of floats to the bottom, he's not going to just stop pouring anything into him. He's going to try and get him to the top because you don't want to see a kid fail.
For sure.
So to continue to, if we have a guy who can squat 600 pounds, we don't just want to say, hey, you're off the team because you can't show up. We're going to try and give him opportunities, give him tools to make himself better and continue to rise because we want to build people up. That's why we're coaches.
I've also realized sometimes the guy that squats 600 pounds doesn't even know he can be great.
Right.
I got to tell him. But I mean, seriously, because you just take for granted, oh, well, this guy's that good at it. I need to make sure, like, if you're choosing not to be, like, great at it, that you're choosing that. But I'm letting you know you can be.
Yep.
Then it's all up to you, bro.
And that's giving them that tool that can help them realize. And they might squat 700 pounds because you gave them that tool, and it helps them rise above where the standard was set.
Yeah. What's the squeeze feel? What's the squeeze look like, Mike?
Is
it just like always like
just put them under the microscope type of thing?
Yeah. And
I might have to take some of your vibes from that.
And like I said, I don't even mean it like in a. I don't. Yeah. They're not gonna coast.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
They're not like just little things. When they walk by me, I'm gonna say, "What's up, Treadway?" Like you're not just gonna go over there and just kind of hide during practice today. Like we see you, right? And I think that's just really, really important because I in the past, those people that were in that squeeze before I had that verbiage, I just may not pay attention to them.
You just kind of
like, they don't get it, like whatever, like let them do their thing. But that
can also take down the overall, right?
That's what I've realized, that those people don't belong in this program, right? So, and they hurt everybody else. So yeah, like I want them to feel myself, our coaching staff, I want them to feel others like they are a part of this thing, and the squeeze is hopefully to get them to rise up. Like it's not to push them out, but if it pushes them down, then they have to hopefully find something else. But yeah, it's nothing crazy. It's just I see you, I notice you, like you're a part of this thing, and you're not getting it done, and I'm seeing that as well, right? So put it on.
Well, I mean, even I think like the chirping like in a sarcastic kind of healthy way. It's like mini challenges at times I think is really, really important. Same thing I did to you.
Yep.
I was like, I go, Mike, next level is right down the street.
That's it.
So, and then we kept talking. Then he came back to it in the conversation. He goes, I see what you did there.
yeah. I mean, 'cause I was doing the dumbbell shred. I was part of the app, but not.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, you live like 2 minutes from here. Like I got this place where we work out. Like you can actually be here.
No, but it was funny because like I threw it out and then he kept going and then he swung back. And it was I love it. Man, some great information, guys. Yeah. I mean, you got anything to add, Treadway? Good, Dustin.
Yeah, I don't think did I do my?
I don't
that's
think
what I do. My bad. I'm trying to steal.
Bring us home.
You had some good stuff. So
listen. A good coach will remember that everyone has to.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead.
No, so actually mine, and it'll be kind of short, but it's probably more of a question for Treadway and Deegan because these guys actually coach team sports, a little different than what you and I do.
For sure.
And even the sport that I'm most involved with, outside the gym, with being wrestling, there's always a very clear cut, for the most part, who the starter is. It's like you gotta win
versus you.
Yeah, you gotta win the wrestle off. And for you, you might have 2 or 3 guys that are good at 181.
Yep.
And it's gonna sort it out at the meet who's the best guy because that's gonna be the guy with the highest total or whatever. And so I guess you could kind of look at that as your starter. You know what I mean? But for you guys that coach a team sport, and for any of the other coaches that are watching, how do you kind of make that decision of like, all right, I'm gonna start this guy over that guy when you're looking at 2 guys who are maybe close in ability, but one guy's a little bit more bought in than the other? At what point do you say like, all right, these guys are close enough, but guy B, who's maybe not quite as good, but he's more bought into the culture and he gives 100%, we're going to start him over the other? At what point does that disparity in talent start to matter? Say, you know what, even though this guy's not as bought in, we got to start him because he's going to win games for us.
Michael looks like he wants to hide right now.
Yeah. maybe a little too close for comfort.
He's probably
this time
going
of year.
right. He's like right in it right now, boy. He's in the trenches.
We're 10 days out of making it. Do you want to go first? And
Sure.
I'll hop in.
Yeah. So it's real simple. I always reward the behavior that I want to get. So if I have
but I'm saying though, what if that's gonna? At what point where that guy's gonna cost you games? Do you deviate from that, or do you not?
No, at high school, it's about developing young men and young women, young athletes, more than it is about wins and losses. So if I have a behavior of this is the standard, this kid shows up every time, this kid never shows up, then it doesn't matter. We had a situation where we had a kid who was very talented and should have been on the field based on talent, but he never showed up, and it's pretty simple. Like if you don't, I'm not going to put you on the field just because you're talented or you're better than somebody else, because that is a negative behavior and that's not to be rewarded. And when everybody sees that, then they can fall to that behavior. It's about holding the standard, right?
So I love that answer, and I love the theory behind it. But let's say you got a kid that's a D1 level recruit. He's getting recruited by top colleges, but he doesn't have the behaviors. And then you got the kid behind him at striker or whatever the position is in soccer that's maybe at best a JV star. What do you do? Do you set the D1 level recruit?
Well, it's probably easier when the gap's closer.
That's what I'm saying.
Probably difficult when it's that.
That was kind of my question. I know when the gap's close, you obviously go with the guy. But if it's that big, do you still stick to that?
Yeah, 100%. I think you have to hold the standard because if the division,
I think a lot of high school coaches would not. They might not want to admit it, but they wouldn't do that.
No.
Yeah. So if the Division I player is truly about it and he's truly that, if he is holding himself to a lower standard, by the time he gets to Division I, he's going to fall out. So you're doing him a favor by not playing him.
That's
And if he can understand that and say, hey, why am I not playing? I'm clearly better. And then he comes and talks to you and you're honest with him. Say, hey, you're not showing up. You're not putting in the extra effort. This is why. And you have all the talent in the world to make it to the next level, but you're gonna fizzle out because you're not trying hard enough, or you're not holding yourself to that to the best of your ability. And I think if you're honest with him, you're doing him a disservice by starting him and rewarding that negative behavior.
I think that you are ready for a head coaching position.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Great answers, Treadway.
Yeah, anybody got some applications?
Oh, man.
You got you?
Yeah, well, no, I think I could go in a million different directions here. One, I think the better your culture and your environment is, that tougher that question is, because you don't have those people don't show up. Like those problems aren't there. Like that's I don't know, like how would say wrestling. Let's just say like people are showing up regardless. Like so the buy-in piece is a real fine line. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Or if they don't show up for very long, they ain't there anyway.
Yeah, like that's like a wash. Like that person doesn't exist. But to me, it's like the idea of that playing time and just how small of a margin that can be. I like the one word. I don't know if you said it exactly like this, but a lot of times it comes down to who impacts winning. And that's usually going to be the person who's bought more into the process of what we're trying to accomplish. So you do have to sift through some things. But I do think, like, for us, if I'm answering this question honestly, I think you do tend to err on the side of athleticism and who can do special things. Like I really do. Like
well, at the end of the day, your job is to win games for the university. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is, and I think it's to win games. And I do think Pete, there's a bad vibe when you say winning's important now, which I completely disagree with, because I think winning. If you watch little kids, if you're on a winning team, like, they're excited. Winning's fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, winning brings people back. So I don't think winning has this. It's not like you're selling your soul to win.
No.
But I think you have. So I'm like stuttering with this question, because I think our culture is at a point where you don't have those big gaps. There's not bad kids. They're not. So you have to really kind of define. You know, what do you value here? What do you value in the situation? And I think where the art of coaching is keep putting your arm around those people who aren't in right now, because you're going to need them at some point. Oh, yeah. And not just kind of burying them to the side. Like, we have, you know, like I said, this is a touchy one for me, because we're 10 days out of having to make some really tough decisions, and it's not, the picture's not real clear to us. So there's going to be some conversations of, hey, like, this may not be your weekend, but keep working, and mean that. Like, really mean it. This is a 3-month season, and if you get caught up right now and not playing today, boy, that's a missed opportunity. So I don't know if I answered your question directly. I just think that it's a question that I take very serious, and our staff is going to collaborate to try to do what's best for Denison baseball. Like, that's my mission. Yeah. What's best, and that could be a lot of different things. It could be playing the really talented kid that doesn't quite have all the values in line right now. It could be going with that person who's really bought in. But we're going to do what's best for our program. We're going to communicate that with our guys to the best of our ability. And I say the best of our ability because we can't give every piece of information to the guys. And then just try to keep leveling them up and say, hey, look, just stick with me. Like, your time's coming, and you work while you wait, and it's amazing to me. I've done this long enough where this guy who doesn't have a role for most of the year, at least they don't think they have a big role, there comes this moment where you need them. And the people who have worked while they've waited, they go in there and they flourish. And then the person who's had their head down and is pouted, that moment comes and they're not ready for it. So, anyways,
they peed on their leg because they ain't prepared.
Yeah. Like, they complained. They called home. They said, "Hey, I'm not getting my fair shake." And then one day we say, "Hey, Tread,
your turn.
It's your turn, baby. You got to go. Somebody got hurt. Let's get it. Big game tonight, and you're not ready." You know, so. Anyways, yeah, it's such an important conversation, but I do think that the better your culture is, like, that finer that line is. It's not guy not showing up. Our guys show up. Our guys all work hard. Yeah. But it's who's doing the little bit extra.
Yeah.
So
I saw, like, a pretty impactful interview about Tom Brady talking about the Drew Bledsoe situation, right? And, like, Robert Kraft was saying how, you know, he walked up to him right after he was drafted, and he was like, Tom introduced himself. Hey, you know, Mr. Kraft, I'm Tom Brady. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are. You're our 6th-round draft pick." Tom Brady says, and that's going to be the best thing that you guys ever did in the whole organization history. He said some outlandish comment. And Robert Kraft was like, all right, you know. But he watched him prepare at the highest level. He knew as soon as he got that spot, it wasn't going away. So Drew Bledsoe, who's an all-pro, big money, $100 million guy, goes down. And there you go, right? But he prepared like it was his anyway.
Yeah, and you heard his comment that in the Man in the Arena where he said, my teammates and coaches had a ton of faith in me because they saw the preparation that I put in.
Their confidence was already there.
And so, like, he was not waiting for Bledsoe to get hurt, but he knew at some point, like, it'll be his. And then, but because of his work ethic, not just himself believed, everybody believed. And there's your story.
Once again, so the reps and the consistency breed your own confidence, but then when other people witness it, because it's action, they're confident in you. So these guys see how I operate. If I'm going to go make a big decision, they're probably pretty confident that it's going to be the right decision, or at least with all of my ability that it's going to be the right decision, because they know I'm not like not showing up for a week and then we're taking on some big risk. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
I think it's anything.
At the very least, I know that you're never just going to make a rash decision. You know what I mean? Never.
Because I don't operate that way.
I appreciate that comment. I think that's how our players feel. Like, they're not going to agree with some of these decisions we make, but it's not going to be off the cuff. Like, whatever we decide is not going to be.
Yeah, they know you're not just throwing shit at the wall.
Yeah. Like, they may not agree with the reasoning. They may not quite see it. But just like in a business decision, guys don't go, okay, hey, we're just going to do this today. Like,
yeah,
right?
it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and you can't maybe explain every detail of the decision to everybody.
I can't.
But they believe that, hey, let's see how this
So
thing
when
goes
people
out.
question something that from the outside in, they don't have all the details, and they think it's one thing, my answer always is, I don't make unrational decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's somebody that's not here or gone or whatever, it's for an actual reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And that's all I feel like I ever have to say. So, D, sorry I almost didn't give you your room.
No, that was good. I mean,
That was
I
perfect.
really wanted to get their feedback on that, because they do coach team sports.
It
I
is
think
a
both
lot
of them-
different for us.
Yeah, they had excellent answers, so I think that's
Because the kids
that's
can
good.
go out and win, and that's just what it is in wrestling. Same with my guys. Like, they can all sign up for the same weight class, and whoever squats the biggest weight, they win. You know what I mean? Like, it's
I
like,
think picking a starter when there's a lot more gray area as far as who's better,
tough.
it'd be a lot tougher. And I think of myself in the situation. I mean, as a coach, I would want to win. And depending on how big that gap is, it would be hard not to go with the talent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
You can preach it, but to actually do it in practice is another thing. So
your answer was very definitive,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. And yours obviously had more kind of space in it.
Yeah, no, I know we want to wrap this up. I read this great
Yeah.
book by Michael Lombardi, but it's a gridiron genius, and Michael Lombardi worked with Belichick with the Patriots, all that stuff. But the analogy was with Randy Moss, and he said people said Randy Moss had a bad reputation, all that
Yeah.
stuff. He goes, but people don't understand is that Randy Moss had football character. Like he played hurt. He was, he studied film. So there was like some things
love Randy
some
Moss.
things on the fringe that maybe that other people didn't like, but within that room, people respected him because he played hurt, did all those things. So
he was a gamer, 100%.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And so when you're around high achievers, like that's what I like. As we've gotten better, like our guys don't really care about some of that petty stuff. They want the best guys out there.
Hey,
Yeah.
we're talking about practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want to win.
They want to win, so they'll put up with some stuff if they have baseball character or football character.
Guys in a moment, he can pull it through.
Does that make any
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
You
No,
know what I mean?
100%.
Like you get a little bit more leeway.
Well, I think that was Iverson's whole point, going back
It
to that
was.
famous
Yeah,
quote about
yeah.
practice. Now, obviously, you want someone that shows up for practice, but his whole point was like, you guys are caring about these little things that matter to you. When in reality, when it's game time, he's going to give 100%.
What he said
every
was,
second.
who you want shooting the last shot tonight?
Yeah. Yeah.
This other guy or me?
Yeah, we talk about practice.
It's so good.
Yeah,
That's
and
good.
Iverson was a great example too. Played hurt, played tough,
Great-
played
yeah.
hard.
And everybody that was around him, respect him like a goat.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like the locker room perspective and the outside perspective sometimes is obviously two wildly different
And
things.
if you got high performers, they want high performers around them. And so for last year, for the first time ever, I never shared this. I didn't even share with our team, but I went to one of our better players. We were debating a lineup. We were debating two spots, and I said, "Who do you think?" I wanted to hear their feedback.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, but that's good.
Do you want to ride with this person or this person? And I don't know. It was a moment of some may say weakness, but we had a coin toss, and I went to somebody. I wanted.
I think
to,
they probably
I think
respect
that's good.
it. I think
because
they
you
respected
need the
it
perspective
probably.
of the athletes.
Yeah,
they're gonna view those guys, the locker room perspective, like you
Different.
said.
Yeah.
Did he
differently
give
than
you the
guys.
answer you expected?
He did.
Yeah.
He did, and not the one that the coaches thought we were going to.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
We were considering more what we would consider more talent.
Yeah.
and someone and look, you can't do that often. By the way,
No,
no.
no.
That's how you end up. You should be sitting in the stands then if you're not willing to make decisions. But every now and then I do think there's something about. I don't hate to use war analogies, but going to battle with people who are invested and
course.
committed. And one of the things that I do, not this first weekend, but when it gets late in the year, it's like who am I willing to lose with, and or who are we willing to lose with? And I think that matters. Like in business and everything else,
Yeah.
like hey, there's no guarantees any of this stuff's going to work out.
No,
but
bro.
if it goes down, I believe in you, and I believe in you, and I believe in you, and we'll go home and we'll lick our wounds together,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
But I'm not going down with someone who's half bought in at that point. So sorry.
No.
Anyways,
No, it's great. Coach's Clinic Podcast brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. Blazing the content out here. I'm your boy Corey G, Coach Mike Deegan, Coach Tyler Treadwick, Coach Dustin Myers. We are out.